So I think changing gears, let's look to 23 because
23.
I think all those that are super serious are looking at the next year, even 2 years down the road, and trying to, cook up the books and figure out what's going to excite you next year, what's going to bring some success, hopefully. And I love this time of year because I love researching things and I love figuring out and there's every year there's areas I want to look at that are new.
Yep.
I love going back to the old haunts, and I forever will. Give them a break every once in a while, and then go back a couple years later. But there's new states. I've not done a ton of. I can't say out of state because I've done a couple of out of state hunts, but I haven't done like I used to do Nevada and Colorado and all these other places. I haven't done that in a while. I've been racking up some points and just kind of holding on to
Oh
these
gosh.
over the counter tags. When I say racking up points, I mean like I've got 3 or 4 now. So I feel
Yeah,
like
I can get you in a lot. I can get you in a lot of good places.
I feel like I could do a pretty good Colorado or whatever now.
Oh yeah.
Um, Last time I was in Colorado, I drew it with 1 point and had a great hunt. It's an early archery hunt. This is back when we were hunting in August and had a great hunt and figured I kind of assumed after that hunt that I'd try to get back every year, but there's still a lot of opportunities out there. And I just happen to live in a state where I can get an over the counter mule deer tag every year. So there's that. And I have a hard time sometimes breaking free from my home state to go
Yep.
look at these other ones. But I'm kind of, with a few points banked, I'm looking at 2023 differently than I have the last couple of years. And looking at going back and trying some new places, new units, going to some other states, doing some state hopping. So what are you,
Yep.
what are you doing this time of year to kind of cook up your books for the calendar for 23?
So yes, so like you said, app season is the most exciting time of the year. I will say it does get me just as excited almost as preparing for a hunt. Like that week before you're getting ready to go. That's the kind of feeling I get. It's obviously not as high of a feeling as on the hunt, but it's right there.
Yeah.
And I really do think everything you do right now, even though you might be like, I just got my butt kicked on a couple mule deer hunts, and so I want to maybe think mentally I should take a break. But like this is the time of year. I think if you do everything right now, all your steps, like try to do all your research right now, try to pound everything out. Like you have a big chunk of time where there's nothing going on right now. This is the best time to be sitting at a computer, reading some books. I don't like pulling up biology reports, diving into everything you can, jumping on the phone, talking. Like this is where you can set yourself apart and find a little hidden gem right now.
Hmm.
Don't wait for that week before the app season for a new state. Like, oh, I haven't done my research yet. I got to jump on GoHunt and do a quick research. Like, no, you can do a lot of things right now to set yourself apart. And even jumping into maps and looking at maps right now. Like,
Yeah, that's
that's
what I
what
was
I'm
gonna
doing.
say. I feel like I almost look at maps more now than I do just before my hunt. Um,
Maps are
be-
everything
because
right now.
that's going to determine like how the country looks. That's going to get me excited about the area to even apply for the tag or go to this even an
Yep.
over counter unit. And you know, I feel like research season is the time to really scour the maps and kind of look at, is this even a place I want to apply for? Um,
Yep.
and and I'll be honest, yeah, I think if I did the numbers, ran the numbers, I'd probably look at maps more here in the next 2, 3 months, more than I do
Yep.
even July and August ahead of the season.
I think it's a common thing that people think app season is just numbers, it's just reports. It's just, like we have a great system with filtering 2.0 and draws. Like you can do a lot right there. But like when I get down there and I'm manipulating filters, I'm trying to find a new area in a new state, and I get down to select a handful of units. Sure, I could look at numbers. I can look at, what that area has in there based on all the data that we can collect from a state. And data is powerful, but at the end of the day, that unit says it's 45% public. I want to know where that 45% public is right now. I want to jump in there. I want to look at that thing in 3D. I want to look at every little ridge line where all the access points are. I want to know how that unit compares to that unit. If I'm going to burn some points or go on an out-of-state hunt and take some vacation time, I can't just go off of, yeah, this unit is great, has great harvest success. I need to do other work as well because I want to know everything about that unit. And that's why I lean on the maps right now
Hmm.
hard.
Hmm.
I'll even drop waypoints right now in units and be like, yeah, well, this looks like a good ridge line. It might not even apply there, but it might be beneficial to me later on. But like knowing what that terrain looks like because I have a certain style like to hunt. Like I don't want to, you know, what if I looked on some numbers and everything looked perfect to draw this tag? I could pick it up, but all of a sudden I look at the map after I draw the tag and it's all timber. Like the
Hmm.
whole entire thing's just dark timber. As a mule deer hunter, how I hunt, I'm gonna not like life at all if that just unit's all dark timber. There's really no place to glass
Yep.
at all for me because I love glassing. And so that's why I think you have to look at maps in the combination with all those other tools. All these other tools are great. We mesh them all together, and that's where the secret sauce is. Like
Yep.
that's truly where you cut your teeth on doing your research every single night, checking out some new areas on a map, and then definitely leaning on draws and filtering 2.0 kind of stuff is super important.
Hmm.
But I like
Yeah,
I
that's
like leaning on those maps a little bit.
so my process is that I go to the insider, I go to filtering, I roll through some things. Um, and public land is one of the things I look for. Kind of ease of access is a big one for me. I like trying to put myself in places where animals are a little bit unpressured, I guess, like you.
Yep.
I'm looking for trophy quality in the area, units that have areas where they can just grow old and die and not get killed every year. So I kind of run my filter through that. And it's at that point when I neck it down and I grab a handful of units and are like, okay, these ones excite me. These ones have a history of, if you want to put numbers to like 170 plus bucks. Um,
Yep.
okay, so that's one of the things I'm looking for. The amount of public land, it's another thing I'm looking for. And then once I get this handful of units, that's when I go to my maps and I'm looking at, like you said, exactly what you said is, well, yeah, there's a lot of timber here. This is just not the country for me. This is not
Nope.
like plains country isn't my cup of tea. Heavily wooded areas, not my cup of tea. Sometimes you got to be careful, time of year as well. Some of these areas, they might have a pretty decent success rate, but it's dependent on the year, weather dependent. When those animals are coming out of that timber and they're dropping down into the private stuff and the low country. And
Mhm.
um, I think you got to look at a lot of factors, and that's why I go to the maps and look. I'm doing all things 3D and
Yep.
looking at everything, trying to get the best picture. And that's how I narrow down like what unit I'm going to actually apply for. Because the last thing I want to do is
Yep.
just go off of numbers. If I just go off of numbers, this unit may have some monsters in the past, but maybe those bucks came, like I said, off private down
Yep.
low with
Yep.
weather. I probably am not going to be too excited about applying for that unit.
Mhm. For a total example, just the other day, one of my friends was asking me about how I use maps to apply. And he had said, I have this unit picked out in this state. Can you help me a little bit, see if it's going to be a good unit for me to apply for? Because he's been building points up for a little while and he wants to make it a good hunt. So I looked at, Filter 2.0, I looked at some draw stuff. I'm like, yeah, man, you could draw this tag. Like, I don't know much about it because I've never had this point level to try to draw a tag like this before because I turn and burn my points as much as I can. So I walked him through, like I said, like overlaying that public land right now on the map. But I was like, you want a later season hunt. You want one of those rifle hunts that could be, snows, could be a migration thing, could be getting things a little bit ruddy. So I can see where that public land is right now. And I was like, have you ever looked at the herd migration data that we have? He's like, no, we have that. I'm like, yeah, we have that. And so I start overlaying the like winter concentration areas, severe winter areas on top of that public land. And I was like, all right, this is what you need to look for right now. If you look at that public land and all of a sudden you turn on those severe winter areas and all those severe winter areas are down low on the private, that could be a sign that, you know, those deer are just going to bounce down and go hang out in that private. You're going to miss out because that public's a little bit higher up. The deer are going to migrate all the way down. So that's one of those hunts that might be better for early season. But as you get later to one of the later seasons that you're looking at, you're going to run into access issues. But I'm like, luckily in your unit, I can stack all those migration layers on top of each other, and they're still overlaying on that public, which makes me think in my head that could still be a good hunt. And those deer aren't going to just dive down to private. And he was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. And it's like, that's why using maps right now to apply. Now he's really excited about it. Now he's going to do more homework and look at some
Mm,
neighboring units, but he's like, has a different thought process of how he can go about applying. Because he has
yeah.
all the data and you overlay all this other tools. And then now the light clicks like, ooh, this is going to be, could be a fun hunt. And I can start planning stuff.
Yeah. No, that's a huge tool. Um, so let's take filtering 2.0, for example. When
Yep.
Brady Miller goes through it, starts scrolling through, what are the top few pieces that you're putting in to look at units that you're wanting to grab? I know you're not a big points guy, you're looking for low point units as well. Um,
Yep.
I can say, oh gosh, probably 99% of the hunts I've ever drawn um, have been, 4 and under points. I did draw a unit that's been a while, way in the past, that I had 15 points. It was my old state of Washington. I drew this tag. The only reason I got to 15 points is because Washington had this really cool little thing where if you catch a poacher, you get 10 points, right? And
Oh,
uh
geez.
and I had drawn this other unit prior with a couple points, and some guys came on and poached this buck, and I watched him. So I called the officer, and he came up, and he ended up snagging him. I helped him snag him the next day, and they knew what they were doing too. Um, and that officer made sure he threw 10 points my direction. So now I had 15 points instead of 5. So I drew the very next year in a unit that I probably would have never drawn, and that was the most points I've ever had built up. Literally 15 deer points, which was
That's
nice.
crazy to think about.
But outside of that, most of my units have always been like 1, 2, 3, or 4, right in that range. And I can't say. I think I've got a couple states right now that I'm a little bit above that. Utah, maybe.
Yeah, you
Don't.
got to have those dream states where you
Yep.
carry points because you're doing other things in the meantime. But what you're doing right now, you have your hunts, but you're setting yourself up for future success as well. Yeah, some of those dream tags might be a dream and take you a long time, but at least you're
Yep.
planning for it, and maybe you could eventually burn them on a lesser unit. But like you have a plan in place at least.
Yeah, I would love to hunt Utah someday. I just don't have time right now, and there's all these other things I want to do. So I'm just throwing a point at Utah these days, and eventually one of these
Yep.
years I'll decide to go give it a shot. But um, most states, that I'm serious about, I'm going for kind of low point units, um,
Yep.
1 to 4, right in there. So, what are some of the tools that you're using? What are some of the numbers that you're throwing into filtering to kind of figure
Yeah.
out the perfect hunt for Brady?
Yep. So, like you just said, I don't carry a lot of points in most states because I turn and burn. I'd rather hunt now, learn about the animal I'm hunting. Every year, I sit on the bench and don't go out and hunt is a year off my life that I won't get back. So, like, I like burning points. Everyone always makes fun of me all the time. I go, oh, Brady's strategy is just to turn and burn them. But it's like, well, I can get tags in my pocket. And yes, these areas are quote unquote easy to get for a reason. They might not have the high deer densities. They might not be the greatest seasons, but at least I'm hunting. And some of these states, you really can throw pins at the map and you can probably find some deer on normal years, not
Mm,
like we just experienced.
mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I'd rather be out there hunting because, some of these units, they still can have big giant deer. You know, I've done it before. I'm going to keep trying to do it again. So like right now, though, is a weird year where I really have to just start over. I don't have a lot of points in most of these states that normally had at least 1 or 2 points, and I would switch it back and forth. Like right now, I'm at a tough position because I drew quite a few tags the last couple of years, but I still can find a lot of stuff on filtering 2.0. Everyone says there's not a lot of opportunity in the West, but there actually is when you look at it. Like you can find lots of opportunities in these states. You just got to be willing to jump state borders and check out other areas or check out new units. And so right now in filtering 2.0 for me, I'm looking at every single state, jump into filtering, go right to mule deer. Might bump that little trophy potential around like maybe 170, somewhere around there. I try to go up a little higher, but then I realize those are going to be high point units sometimes. And I dive down into public land. I really work on the public land percentage because, like I said, I want to find units that have a lot of public land. But I also quickly jump over to maps and I want to see where in that unit that public land lies and if it's going to be decent public. I don't want it to be, oh yeah, that unit's 60% public, but it's just this arid, dry desert with nothing on it, and that's all the public land in the unit. Like, and
Hmm.
all the deer get killed in private. So I look at that right away as well. I don't really put a lot of effort or thought into harvest success.
Mm.
I think it's just because years of hunting and knowing that I'm willing to do things that might seem crazy to a lot of people, or in my head I'm even think it's crazy. Like I will work really hard to try to find a deer. So if that harvest success might be a little bit low, I might think in my head, all right, what was these are easier to draw tags. It might be someone who, just hunts it every single year. Maybe they know it really well. Maybe they're holding out for a giant, not going to pull the trigger, or maybe it's people aren't just getting in the backcountry and they're just the harvest success is low for whatever reason. And I'm just thinking in my head like I could probably do a little bit differently than maybe someone else. Not trying to say I'm the best at anything, but like in my mind, I don't lean on harvest success a lot. If it's gonna drop off and tank from like
Mm.
a high percentage down to like from 45% down to like a 10% on a rifle hunt, that
Hmm.
might be alarming to me because something else could be going on biologically with the deer, and that's why there's no one's killing an animal.
So are you looking at the trends
I'm looking at
at all?
I do other look at trends. So like I said, a trend like that would scare me because something is going on besides for hunters just aren't killing deer. Because if they go from a high percentage all the way down to a low percentage, maybe I can look at those tag numbers as well. Maybe those tag numbers in that unit are skyrocketing
Mm.
because the state might be doing a different management plan. They're trying to manage and knock a bunch of deer back because the whole CWD thing that everyone keeps worrying about. So they're giving out way too many tags, and that's putting a lot of pressure on the deer. And then harvest numbers are just tanking because they killed a bunch of deer the year before, and now it's getting worse and worse. So I'll look at it in that sense, the trend. But I don't like just a year over year look
Hmm.
when it's I don't look at that a lot. I don't put a lot of weight
Because
in that.
there's kind of a couple different trends that you can look at, I guess, in filtering even is yeah, number of folks applying for a tag. There's going to be a
Yep.
trend there, whether it's up or down. Obviously, if it's up, you got more people applying generally year after year. Your odds may not be what you think they are to draw that tag,
Mm-hmm.
and then success trends. And I'm with you. I don't I don't do anything with that tool with the success, the odd. Like I don't put it at I got to have a 40% success rate for a
Yep.
unit. I don't put a number into the success rate. Um, and I too, I guess I just feel like every most of these units there's gonna be a buck somewhere, and I don't need to see $10 a day. I just need to see one um,
Yep.
on a 10-day trip. So
A lot of times too, I will, if the state does have really good data, I will go up at the top and filtering. Once I kind of get some of my filters narrowed down a little bit, I might go and sort by male female ratio, so buck doe ratio,
mhm.
just to kind of see what I'm looking at in some of those numbers. I'm not, every state manages differently, so those numbers could look totally different in one state compared to the other. Like 15 to 100 buck doe ratio could be phenomenal in one unit in one state, and another state would look at that and laugh like they manage for 25 and up.
Mhm.
So it's just I don't put a lot of weight in that either, but I do look at it because I want to kind of see, because that's straight biology numbers. Obviously, those are extrapolated, but it's a good number to look at as well, just
That's
to
interesting.
get
Yeah, I
things.
I can't say that I've used buck to doe ratios when applying for mule deer. Now I can say for elk, if applying for some elk hunt wherever, I absolutely look to bull cow ratios a lot.
Yep.
Uh, that is night and day. Some of those units, I mean, gosh, you can find units, you got 40, 40 bulls to every hundo cow. So those are units
Yep.
that if I can get a tag for, I'm going for it.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't done it as much for mule deer. I feel like, when I go out, I'm looking for that one bull
One deer.
buck,
Yep.
and
You don't
it
you
could
don't
be a
need
very low
you don't need
bull
a ton
buck
of
to,
bucks.
yeah, you don't need a ton of bucks.
Yeah.
I don't need to see, 25, 30 bucks to every 100 does, but and it feels as if sometimes those older crusties are in places where it's a pretty low buck to doe ratio for some reason. I noticed that
Yep.
back in Washington as well.
So that's why when I'm looking at this stuff, I'm kind of looking at stuff. I'm trying to manipulate my filter to look at stuff that other people aren't looking at.
Hmm.
because like if you say take those filters and you're like, oh yeah, that I can crank that trophy potential to 190, or on like elk I can go all the way up to whatever 390 inch or 400 inch bull. Like, okay, sure, everyone else can see that same data. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, like you can see it all. Everyone can see it. So what you got to think about is the underlying data that people just overlook. How can you find that? Well, like I said, you can look at those trend numbers, harvest success. You can look at the trends in just how many people are applying in those units. Is it going up? Is it going down? Like all those little pieces right there, you're just adding in that little piece of the puzzle that
hmm,
someone might not look at. That's why, like, yeah, trophy potential at 160 even can be great sometimes, because again,
absolutely.
that's going to be a great deer, and there's obviously a potential for higher. And you start looking at, the unit might be a great unit for you. You can glass it, you can check it out. But then one of the biggest things right now, since I'm starting from scratch and I have to look at some of these new units I've never been to, we built this really sweet tool on GoHunt that we're getting ready to launch. I've been using it a lot lately, and I think it's going to be pretty cool when we drop it. So now we have the ability in filtering 2.0 to save units. So being able to save units. So once
Is
you like,
is that the hunt
you,
planner that's kind of
yep,
got
that's Hunt
teased?
Planner.
It's a little bit teased on
Yep,
the site right now.
we've been if we can tease it, you can find it if you look hard enough. But we
Okay.
haven't like publicly, said, hey, this is launched. We're still working on some things to make it, add a few other features right now. But it's live right now. So if you're on Filtering 2.0, you'll see there's a save button.
Okay.
So what you can do is you manipulate those filters. You found a unit. You don't have time to research, or you accidentally shut down your computer and go back to it. All those filters that you had before are now gone. You have to remember, like, what did I have that filter at? What state was that? What unit was I looking at that struck me as really important? Well, now you can click that save button. It's going to pop up a screen. You can now add that saved season to a hunt folder. So a hunt folder could just be like, hey, this is my 2023 mule deer plan, or this is my 2023 New Mexico mule deer plan. And you can start saving seasons to that folder. And then you can jump into Hunt Planner, and now you'll be able to see all those seasons you saved. I can be like, well, I want to rank those because now I found out something like that unit actually is better. I don't want it to be ranked unit 1, 2, 3 all the way down. I want to rank it specifically. So you can actually sort those units to rank them for your personal, whatever you saw that was excited you. Underneath every unit in that season, it'll show you all that same information: buck doe ratio, public land percentage, harvest success. But now also you have the ability to drop notes.
Notes. I saw
This
that. Yeah. So you can put all your own information into this description that you
Yeah,
have. Yeah. Okay.
I can be like, well, yeah, I was at this hunting show, and I bumped into a guy who said he had really good intel in this unit and gave me his phone number. Well, I'm going to put that in my phone, but I'm also going to jump over here and be like, hi, Joe over here, said something, and it said something about this corner of the unit. I'm going to make a note in that in Hunt Planner, so I can start adding a bunch of notes as I start building it out. Or maybe I look at some other data on maps and that excited me. I want to drop that in here. So I can drop those on every little season level. And then I also can drop notes just on the main Hunt Planner thing as well, and just like dive into everything I might want to see. Because I always used to do this on like a Google Doc. I would take a unit, I would take all these numbers and write down what I'm seeing in the trends. Like, oh yeah, trends going down, harvest success is going up because they're giving less tags. So now I'll take that information that I see, and I might write that into the notes as like a thing that just clicked in my mind right away, or for a future reference. Just basically, I'm puking on the screen of all this information in my head because I want to remember it later. So now I have these like 4 units I want that I have in there in my Hunt Planner, and there's a little link below it. That's the coolest link ever. We actually like didn't think of this at first, but like it says like explore seasons or find seasons, but there's a hyperlink in that season. If you click that, it's going to jump you back to your filtering 2.0 with all your same filter results.
Gotcha.
So now it remembers you had buck doe rate, or you had a trophy potential at 170, at harvest success at 28%, and you had public land at 45%. It'll take you to that exact filter results. So now you can jump back and like do your research a little bit quicker.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see it be a real help. Like, let's face it, I do a lot of my research at like between 9 p.m. and midnight.
Yep.
Day is done, girls are asleep, and I just hop on the computer. Some nights you don't get that much time, so I could see a big value in, every once in a while you'll come across one of the unit descriptions or something in there that's like sexy as all get out for mule deer, and then you just save it, boom, toss it in the planner, and then later, you'll remember that. I've been guilty of forgetting about things that look good to me in the past.
Yep.
And then you can kind of, it sounds like you can kind of compare and contrast like some of the, maybe you pick out five that you've got saved in your hunt planner. You can kind of go back and say, well, now I got them narrowed down. Let's pick between five, and let's really be able to dive into each one and see which one's for me.
Yep. And there's even a compare feature in that too. So yeah, you can see them on your hunt planner, but you could also check those units and then click compare. Now you can see a side-by-side view of all the columns of data. It's just
Mm,
another way to quickly see it. So you're not jumping into unit profile, jumping back out of the unit profile. It's like, see what you want to see the nuts and bolts, see what might make you decide to lean one unit compared to another unit. And so I
mm.
think it's going to be a really cool feature. And it opens, I'll just say it opens the door for some other things that we got in our little back pocket that we're working on with this tool too. So it's just a tipping point of what's coming as well. But I'm excited for it. It's something different, something people have been asking for, a way to save units, a way to compare units. And so that's the beauty of being online. We can add these cool little tools that might just help someone out. And I think it helps a lot of people too who are very new to this.
Yeah,
You jump into state, it's overwhelming. Like I lean on draw odds a lot, the standalone draw odds page, but most people might lean on filtering 2.0 because I'm just in this data so much. So now with Hunt Planner, it allows you to literally just plan out your Western hunt. If you live out east and you want to start doing this, you can literally create as much folders as you want, start dropping that data in there. And then
mm,
just you can even drop links in there like, oh yeah, I was reading this app strategy that Trail wrote and it was really good. I'm gonna copy that link so I don't remember it. Yeah, I can bookmark it, but who knows where your bookmarks go on your computer. But they're going to be in GoHunt, so you can drop that hyperlink for one of the app strategies and put that in
that's
the notes,
cool.
like you want to reference that again.
That's huge. Yeah, that's big because you guys got a lot of articles now. You guys got a lot of like strategy articles.
Oh
Be
yeah.
nice to keep on to a few. Yeah, that's another thing I should probably speak to is I know every my old brain doesn't keep track of how every state works. Year to year, I have to re-up on, the application process is it can blow you away. It can be intimidating, especially for people that are new. Um, so I know even though I've done this a lot of years, every year I got to re-up like, okay, so Colorado, that's this process. This is how you do it, blah, blah, blah. That's one really cool thing about the strategy articles that you guys do. You kind of break down each state and how this
Yep.
application process works in this state to this state to this state. And folks, they are drastically different these days. And they're changing by the year. So you really do have to keep up on it. You can't just assume, even if it's your home state. I mean, state of Montana, they change every single year. So if I
Yep.
do this year what I did 2 years ago, it's different. It's changed. So definitely nice to just kind of re-up on all that pertinent information to where you're applying. And I know you guys have done really
Yep.
good. Trail does a lot of stuff, and you as well, to kind of just kind of catch people up on the process.
Yeah, because like I said, every year it's different. Every year the state might make some different changes, or maybe you assume that the bonus point period for a certain state is this date, and all of a sudden the state decides to change it. And like all that information we put in those articles, and those are kind of our babies. So these are the articles that are locked down to insiders only. Like, yeah, on our website you can read a lot of free stuff and get your information you need, but this is the stuff that's juicy that
Hmm.
we have to keep kind of locked behind the paywall for insiders. Because like I was working on when Trail wrote the Wyoming elk one recently, and I was working on that super late at night. I started scrolling through it. I messaged Trails like, Trail, you realize that thing? I think it was like 19 or 22 pages long. Just one article is that long and in depth, like 22 pages.
Yeah.
So you think of all the time he put into that. And Trail's a guy too who could rattle off stats like no one's business because he loves it.
Hmm.
But every year he says he learned something new by working on these articles. And
Hmm.
if Trail says he learned something new, I want to know what Trail learned that was new, and he puts it in an article because yes, we do this every single day, and I do see some data points sometimes that are super cool, or state changes something, and I'm like, I really want to get a tag there. If I tell everyone, everyone will know about it too. But I am morally obligated myself because I want to help people out. So that's why these app strategies are not going to tell like blow up a spot and be like everyone apply here, but it's going to give you the tools you need to hopefully put a tag in your pocket that year or down the road to make you a more successful hunter, because I just want more people out there hunting. And so that's why these app strategies, like when you dive into them, there's little hidden gems in there. I'm not
Oh
going to
yeah.
blow up an area, but we're going to give you all the information you need and help you decide, like, well, what's a preference point compared to a bonus point system? Like, how does that work out? Like,
Hmm.
stop applying for units you're never going to draw in your whole entire life because you don't understand what a preference point system means. You're just thinking you're going to draw that tag in Northwest Colorado for elk, but really you're not going to draw it till you're 200 years old. The way a point system works, like
Yeah.
that's why all that stuff gets really in depth on how the draw system works, little tips and tactics, what's trending maybe, or
Hmm.
how to beat those trends by looking at some of those tables. Like we have a lot of tables in there. You look at them, you're like, oh yeah, that unit looks great, but look down a little bit deeper, and there's those hidden stuff that's in the middle that people are overlooking.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a few things. I know embarrassingly, one of the things I probably use the most is I always go to the application dates because I can't keep them straight. So
Yeah,
I I hit I go to the strategy articles, and then I go to the application process dates because it those change, like you said, every year. So I re-up on what's coming. And you guys have them laid out like this state is next, this state is next, this, by
yeah.
the dates of the year. And so um you're not going to miss one. Which is another
You know,
nice thing.
I was looking at it the other day, and I'm trying to like build out my whole editorial calendar when we're going to launch these app strategy articles and that sort of thing. And this year, it was what we do every year. Is there's I think there was 55 total application strategy articles coming out in 2023. That's 55 of these 20 plus pagers,
Mm,
jam packed full of info, because we break
mm,
them down sometimes by, like, Wyoming elk is one article. Maybe another state we might do mule deer and elk to group together, but it's not just like here's Wyoming, here's everything, and that's 20 pages of all Wyoming species. There's a lot of species in Wyoming. We
hmm.
break them up individually, and almost all these articles are 20 plus pages. And you think when you read an article that's 20 plus pages, if you read all 55 of these articles, wherever it is, there's probably gonna be some nuggets in there, and it's probably going to help you research overall, not just in that state, but it might make your brain just think differently about how you approach your strategy when you use filtering 2.0, or how you
Yeah.
use draw odds, or how you use maps. There is some good value in a state, even if a state you're not looking at applying in, like look at, just read it and read how that draw system works, see how that impacts you. That way, when these states might look at changing something down the road, like, hey, we're going to take X state, New Mexico, we're going to add a bonus point system to it.
Mm,
Right now, it's a random draw. Like,
hmm.
then you're going to have an opinion on why that might not be a good thing, and then you could relay that information to the state, and then you have a value of opinion. So all
Yeah.
these things could like play off in the long run if you just know how states work and start learning every different system.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. One other little feature you should probably throw out for guys that don't have insider or whatever, they don't know exactly what we're talking about until they get in there and dig through it is I think it's a feature you guys added last year. So the ability to point track. Uh,
Oh yeah,
again,
point
some
tracker.
guys some guys are great at running spreadsheets and they got all this information in their computer, right? I'm not that guy. Like I got to go back every year and be like, dang it. All right, I'm going into Montana fishing. How many points do I have for blah, blah, blah? Well, now what's cool is you guys keep track of it. So all I have to do is enter it into Point Tracker on the Insider. And you got my points sitting right there. So I know how many mountain goat points I've got and how many elk points I've got. And that's pretty slick. It seems simple, but it's huge. It makes my life a heck of a lot easier than having to go through and log into my account and look at how many points I have for every individual species.
Yep.
It's a pain every year.
We that same pain point is what we dealt with for a long time. Like Lorenzo, he's a super smart guy. I give him a lot of credit for being so smart and everything he does here at GoHunt. But he kept all his points in a notepad.
Mm,
And I'm like, what happened? Like all his hunt research before was in a notepad. I'm like, what happens if you lose that scratched napkin paper that you had all this data on? Or
yeah.
where, like, how do you find that every day when you go home? We're like, well, it's in a folder. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not that type of person who can just keep a notepad next to me with this important hunt research. So all my stuff's like on Google Sheets back in the day, or Excel files. They're backed up in different email accounts. And so I make sure I never lose them.
Mm,
So we are like, this is silly. We have to bring all this stuff together. Like, there should be no way, no reason that you have to use a different source or a napkin to write down all your information. Let's put it on the website. And the coolest thing about Point Tracker, because it seems simple, like you said, but all those points in Point Tracker automatically roll into your filtering 2.0. So if I want to go to, Wyoming, look at elk, instantly it's going to populate how many points I have based on Point Tracker. So I don't have to enter that information in anymore.
Yeah.
And then also I do all my apps for my family. So I have all my brothers in there in Point Tracker. I have my dad in there in Point Tracker. So I can switch over from my Point Tracker on filtering 2.0. Up at top, you can select a user and I can go my brother. And then instantly it's going to populate his points. So you can manage all the points for your family really easy
Oh, it's so
in one,
slick.
in one spot.
Yeah, it's so slick. Like it does seem simple, but I am so happy you guys came out with it because I am not that organized and I forget year to year. Like people will ask me, well, how many points you got for Wyoming elk? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yep.
Feels like I drew it like 3 years ago or something like that. So maybe 2 or 3. Um, but now it's much easier. Like I said, I hate going into each state's Fish and Wildlife and Parks, whatever, into their system and trying to pull up my account. It takes time, number one, and this is so much quicker. And now, yeah, I've got my daughter now, so I got to keep track of hers because I'm putting her in for some things, and this is a pretty slick, quick way to go for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great way to keep things honest with some of these states too, because I have had instances before where my spreadsheet of my point total was different than on the state website. And instantly I was like, okay, did I mess something up? And I'm like, no, every year I mark down there. I
Dude,
mark when I update that. And
that
I
is
look back through
hilarious.
my,
You just said that because I just picked up a couple days ago. So Montana, um,
oh,
they
yes,
didn't
Montana.
they didn't add an elk point from last year. So I got on, I was looking at my point tracker and I was like, okay. And then I was like, because I went to the Montana Fish and Game, I was like, why?
Yeah.
Because I had 6 points last year. So why does it say I still have 6 points this year? Well, there was a mix up last year
Yeah.
in Montana, if you remember, with the elk thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't give me my point. And what jumped out at me was I was looking at my points on tracker and I was like, gosh dang, I feel like I should have another point here.
Yep.
Because I had that many points entered in my system last year and it didn't re-up and add another point. So um, that saved me because somehow it got
Yep.
missed. And mistakes happen. Mistakes happen. And they'll
Yep.
be the first to admit it as well. Like um, something in the system got messed up. All your other points, you got from moose to goat to deer, but the elk one for some reason didn't get added.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up Montana because I recently had a conversation with them as well. And I had already updated my point tracker because unfortunately I'm a non-resident now. I'm not a resident. So I have to have those non-resident combination points, preference
Mm-hmm.
points. So I looked at my account online and I was like, wow, it shows that I don't have a non-resident preference point. I know I bought one last year. I did not go up to Montana, so I just bought a point. I should have one preference point in my account. Looked at my folder of all my apps because I have screenshots of all my apps. I was like, here's a confirmation that I actually purchased this point during the point purchase period. All my other species are updated except my non-resident thing. Shot them an email, had had the receipt in there. They're like, yeah, we actually show you every preference point. There was a glitch. We'll
Yep.
add it right now.
Yep.
It was that easy because I knew I had all my stuff in point tracker is how I found out. What happens if I did not know that and I went to the next year and all of a sudden
You
I
missed
realized
a
that like that?
whole year.
I
That's a
wouldn't
whole
draw a
year.
tag and I'd be very upset. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's big. And yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of forgot about it. And it just happened a few days ago where I was like, I figured that out. But yeah, these agencies do make mistakes, guys. Absolutely do. So it's nice to have some backups and the tracker helps with that for sure.
Yeah.
So Brady, is there
Yeah.
anything else in filtering or draw odds that you're using that you feel like, I mean, you've got kind of the inside scoop over there that you're using that maybe folks overlook?
Yeah. One big giant thing I'll discuss right now. It doesn't pan out all the time, but it can be very valuable to look at when you're looking because I just chase mule deer. I'm not an elk guy at all. Don't think about elk. Don't deal with elk. I have a lot of points built up for elk. Eventually, I'm going to go on some really good elk hunts. But when I'm looking at these mule deer units in some of these states, if there's an overlapping elk hunt that happens at the same time, a lot of